Good morning. Good morning. Looks like we have a lot of people still entering. Thank you for sharing what school you're from, where you're from. Good morning. For those of you who just entered, we're giving it a few more seconds for others to enter the session. Okay, we want to be respectful of your time, so let's get started in about 10 seconds. Okay, well, officially, hello, everyone. Good morning and almost good afternoon, actually. My name is Amanda Darcy from Scholastic Education Solutions. And on behalf of our amazing team, I just want to say that we are so happy you've joined us today for this wonderful session and all of the sessions taking place online. As a former middle school educator myself, I have so much respect for you all taking the time to be here, to listen and to participate. Before I introduce our speaker, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping things. You will notice that some discussion questions will pop up during the presentation itself that we would love for you to reply using the chat. My colleague, Ariel Whitney, and I will be active in the chat. So if you have any comments during the presentation, we'll be here. And if you have a question, go ahead and use the Q&A box for that so that we don't lose it in the chat. And then at the end of the session, I will come back on screen and share an exciting and innovative new initiative at Scholastic that I just know you're all going to love and want to join immediately. So stay tuned for that very, very special announcement in the last few minutes. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you to Joelle McPhee. Aside from being one of the best people on the planet, Joelle co-founded Uka Island, a game-based foundational reading program that is today known as Scholastic First. She helped build this program from the ground up and is now the director of product marketing at Scholastic, not only for First, but also many other award-winning personalized digital subscription programs that she will touch upon today. So Joelle, I am handing it over to you.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Amanda. I'm really excited to be here today and get this opportunity to talk to you all. We're going to be discussing how to make technology work for you while supporting early readers. And this is a very important topic to me. It touches all the work I do and have done in my career. So I'm really excited to be able to talk about this today and share our best practices and top tips to support students. So before we get into the strategies, I do want to start with what a strong foundation in reading sounds and texts means. What does that look like? So I love this imagery called the literacy diet, and this is for the emergent stage of readers. And I think the thing that we really need to remember is that it begins with oral language. And this is often an overlooked skill, but it's critical to the development of literacy acquisition. And it becomes this foundational piece to reading and writing that children are going to be developing through school. Poor oral language, as you probably know, is what contributes to, we have this widening vocabulary gap that exists when some students don't hear the same volume of words at home as other students do. And how we support our students with oral language is when we are intentional in engaging conversationally. So what that means, yeah.
I think you might need to share your screen.
Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry, everybody. Let's see here.
I thought it was just me, but then I saw a couple of comments.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
Can you all see now?
There you go. Yep.
Okay, this is I love this slide, so I'm really glad you told me that. Okay, so we're talking about oral language. And then when we're talking about that, we're talking about engaging kids conversationally, things that are just, things worth talking about. That really is what all it is. And when we encourage those same kind of conversations between students, that's another way you can foster that skill. The next is alphabet knowledge. So of course, we want to see that our students can name all 26 upper and lowercase letters in isolation. Phonological skills, that's what we refer to as that awareness of speech sounds. So syllables, rhyme, individual phonemes. We're really looking here for students to be able to tune into sounds. And eventually what we want to see is that those phonological skills become automatic. So almost without thought, for reading to be fluent and smooth and accurate. And then the next is that letter sound knowledge. So that's when we start saying or writing the letters that correspond to the sounds. And then concepts about print. So this is another big piece for our emergent readers. We're referring to understanding a book's organization, print orientation, features of print. That's all included in that. And then finally, this is one of my favorite skills because you can really see the light bulb go off in students when they get this, is concept of word. So that's that ability to match spoken words to printed words while reading. Can the child accurately point to the words, particularly two-syllable words as they read it, or are they memorizing that string of text? So that concept of word, it's just as meta as it sounds, it's just, do they know a word is a word? And that's a really big skill for our emergent readers. So this is kind of the full picture literacy diet. This is what we mean by foundations in reading, sounds, and text. This is what we're after. There are also a few reading misconceptions during the early years that I just wanted to quickly address. So myth number 1 is learning to read is a natural process. This is not the case. For most children, learning to read really does require that systematic and explicit phonics instruction among the other skills that must be taught. And then myth number 2 is that children will eventually learn to read if given enough time. So we are big believers that we need to be cognizant and intentional about everything we do in order to give our students the best foundation in literacy. So this is what's going to, in turn, lead to their academic success. So it's up to us to provide our students and their families with all the resources and opportunities they need to move that needle so that they can become literate, lifelong learners. When we talk about what you guys are doing, this is something that I would love to hear. What strategies are you currently using? So if you could put in the chat anything that you're doing that you feel is ensuring those strong foundations in reading, sounds, and text. And I will read, maybe I'll have Amanda read because I can't see the chat right now. If you can see any of those, Amanda, to pop in.
I see foundation. Foundations, lots of foundations.
Awesome.
Gilligam, graphic organizers. Oh, it's going real quick. Science of reading, phonics, open court, scuba method, foundations of Heggerty, lots of Heggerty, science of reading, graphic organizers. Yep.
That's great. Okay, awesome. So I love to hear all of that. It sounds like there's some common themes in there, and the science of reading and everything that we're doing in our classrooms, we hope is evidence-based and driving those outcomes that we're looking for. So that is awesome. So now that we have that understanding of the foundation in reading and sounds and text and what that looks like, how can digital tools help us reach those goals? So there's been a debate between digital versus print, and as we've continued to lean more into technology in everyday life, But what does the research say? So I found this really interesting. We found that studies have shown that students who learn on a digital platform are able to retain local details at a higher rate, so making those recall skills more concrete. However, in similar studies, they show that those who learn with printed materials are able to think more abstractly, so allowing space for those critical thinking and problem-solving skills. So what is it? Is print or digital better? And I think the only answer is it depends, because I think the real beauty, as you know, and we all know today, is in that blended learning. And even just hearing some of the programs that you guys are using, you're already doing this part. So when technology supports the teacher and what is happening in their classroom, that's what's transformational. It can be transformational for both you and the students, and that's what it should be. So in particular, the real benefits of technology is that it can deliver scalable, consistent instruction of tough to teach concepts. So when we were talking about that literacy diet and thinking about those individual phonemes, being able to do all of that practice with those 44 phonemes, that's a lot of work that, you know, you are explicitly teaching the kids, and then they're able to practice with a digital tool, for example. It also offers inclusion and adaptability for students. So basically all learner variabilities have access to different tools and resources. Digital can really support that. And then, of course, technology generates data and analytics with those frequent actionable insights for instruction. So what are you getting out of the technology use that your students are doing? Are you getting that valuable information that you need to inform your instruction? EdTech is also better than ever. I'd say we have more devices are less expensive. We're getting more accessible with schools supporting funding around technology. So whether it's tablets or apps or softwares, that's moving in the right direction. We also have much more accountability around the efficacy behind EdTech than we have in the past. So when ESSA in 2015 expanded that burden of proof for resources, that meant that there all of a sudden were these 4 tiers of evidence. So under ESSA, we hope that, you know, when publishers and content creators create new programs, they are held to a much higher standard, because now there are these tiers that they need to meet. And that's really good for everyone. And then finally, screen time has become such a cultural norm when the conversation is less about dosage, especially since COVID, and more about our relationship with that technology. So we know that digital is here to stay in the classroom, but how we incorporate it in healthy ways, that's the bigger part of the conversation. So that's something that we're talking to with our students and with their families than ever before, because we know it's there. So when it comes to screen time, we hear a lot more about that focus is on quality over quantity, and that's where the message really, really hits. So again, I just want to hand it over to you guys. What kind of technology are you guys currently using to support students? Whether it's, you know, are you using iPads? Are you using websites? Which ones? Do you have any favorites? So add that in the chat. And again, I'll ask Amanda if you can read it out because I can't see.
We already have a lot. We have Starfall, Google Suite, iPads, Google Classroom, Nearpod, MacBook laptops, MyLexia, awesome. Edpuzzle, Pear Deck, Chromebooks, iPads, lots of iPads, YouTube.
Especially for those younger learners, iPads they're just so intuitive, and it's what they're used to as well at home with their parents' phones and everything. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so now we're ready to jump into our top 10 tips. So I'm going to share our best practices that will hopefully make a tactical difference that you can start using right away when it comes to tech and learning. So number 1, this might sound really obvious, but I still want to quickly mention it. Choose digital solutions that are personalized and intentional. So when we say personalization, what we're referring to is that students are challenged, but they're not stuck. If students need to get accelerated, they are able to do that. If they need extra practice, they can get that too. Technology should be able to do this lift for you. That's where we're at. And if it doesn't, then you should choose something that does, because we need to maximize the efficiency of these tools. So really understand what a program means when they say they are personalized, because there's a lot of buzzwords in ed tech too, and personalization can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So make sure that you understand what that means and what that does for your students. And then the other piece is making digital work for you. You're going to hear me say this over and over again, but it should be supporting you. What do you need the most out of it? So is it phonemic awareness? Is it read alouds? Is it vocabulary? If your students are going to be using technology during this valuable school day time, let's make sure it's meaningful to both you and them. So just that deep understanding before everyone gets really locked into a program is helpful. The second tip is to prioritize accessibility and ignore the bells and whistles, which for someone who's been in ed tech for a while, this I understand can be difficult because there's so much cool stuff out there. But what we know, we do know that, for example, there's certain things like digital text should be high quality and bimodal. And what we mean by that is that it should also provide audio support and highlighted text. These are the basics. But what it means is that it provides two methods for the reader to take in the information, especially our emergent readers. So highlighted text during a read aloud can help. We know it can improve focus and it can help with learning to read. It's also going to help kids keep track and remember more when we're lifting those words off the page. When it comes to digital text in particular, we also want to make sure that they're high quality. So that means they're well written, they're timely, they have clear and appealing images, and they're authentic. So those are the two pieces that, when it comes to best practice, that's what we want to see with digital text. Another example with bells and whistles is we want to steer clear of ads, hyperlinks, any features that are a little too hyperactive. Those extra features in apps and websites, they can be really distracting and can actually cause students to lose focus and lower their comprehension. So we really want to benefit students with clean digital displays, more immersive experiences where, they're not able to click out and get into other things at the time of learning. Learning needs to be the one that's taking the main role and they can't get out of it. So this example on the screen, this is from Scholastic First, and that it immerses the student. It's for pre-K to 2 and immerses them into this big reading adventure, and it's focusing on one concept at a time. And that's really important too. Sometimes it's, at the end of the day, we're not entertainment, it's ed tech, it's education first. So we'll never be able to compete with the really fun, no educational games out there. We're not saying we should either. There is outcomes, and we're trying to make them easier for students to get to and more engaging, but they don't have to be overstimulating, especially for our youngest learners. So this tip is one of my favorites. And it sounds really boring, but it is so key. And this can make or break a digital tool. But take time in the beginning to really teach and model how to navigate the digital solution. So when you think about all the different navigational cues that exist in a program, so you have icons and play, pause, and exit buttons, understanding all of these parts are an integral part of Fidelity. And so young students really need to make the most of their digital learning, and they need to be taught how to maneuver through these programs. And I think sometimes we're quick to assume that children of a certain generation are already automatically somehow tech savvy, but I think it's a better way to think of it is that a lot of kids are tech comfy. They may recognize technology and they're comfortable with it, but they don't really know how to use it efficiently or without help. And you want to make sure that, again, you're getting the most out of this technology. You're not having to be tech support the whole time. You're able to work with another group of kids or one-on-one while your kids are using tech in the classroom. So watching you operate the program, that's really helpful. After explaining how to do it, if you can model it, that's going to help them find their own way through the content once it's their turn. So that's a really important tip. And we also have, even just when it comes to like launching a program, so with Scholastic programs, we have what we call easy login, and it's just what it sounds. It was designed with our youngest learners in mind. So we wanted to make sure that they have user icons and picture passwords so that non-readers can still sign in effortlessly without having to remember or type text username and passwords. These are simple details that can make so much difference when it actually comes to implementation, because if you're stuck having to log all the kids in, it eats into your time. So that's a big piece. And no matter what you're using, just whether it's helping students where to tap and how to navigate, this is going to set them up for success as they, especially as they acquire more and more digital opportunities as they progress in their grades and in the classrooms. This is another example. This is from Scholastic Watch and Learn Library. So again, you can just see how non-readers would be able to navigate this. They can choose a video from 9 early learning categories. The icons are bright and warm and friendly, and the interface is built to be very intuitive. So we've done an incredible amount of testing at Scholastic to make sure that our littlest learners are able to get through these steps with minimal support, but still don't forget to do that instructional piece in the beginning just to walk them through. These are, what we would call digital learning moments. It's before the actual instructional pieces would occur, but that's the gateway. They need to be able to access these programs first. The fourth tip is to introduce technology during small group rotational centers. And I'm sure a lot of you already do this, but we know that success in today's classroom really does rely on that seamless blending of new technology with traditional teaching methods. So by keeping digital learning to short 20-minute sessions, students are able to absorb as much detail as possible without overwhelming them with new knowledge. So that's why I love small group rotational centers. You can, get a lot of benefits out of this model because it allows you to group your students by skills, and then you're working with one small group while the other groups are working on digital instruction independently from you. So the best part is that when they are working independently from you, you are at least generating data and analytics that you can pull back into your teacher-led small group time. And I think of this as it's the opposite of the vicious circle. It's a virtuous circle. We're reinforcing that skill building through a continuous feedback loop. The fifth tip is to incorporate student choice to boost motivation. So we all know that students who are given choices about their learning will engage in higher level learning. And when students are more joyfully engaged, their brains are able to process information and store it in long-term range memory more effectively. So this is we know the research behind this with choice. It really does help motivate students to read more. This is an example from Scholastic Literacy Pro, an independent reading program. So we have students here take an interest survey and choose the content areas that speak to them most. So again, we're trying to engage them right from the beginning and let them know that they get to choose. The program will then generate a list of ebook and paperback titles that they can choose from again. So they have this wide variety within that content area that they know they like. And then we're just drilling them down, trying to find that perfect, just right book for them. So these are all things that as adults, we completely relate to. We don't choose books we don't want to read. So adding some choice into the mix via technology is a great way to provide that option if you can. And tip number 6, this is another one that you probably are doing. It may seem a little obvious, but there's so many missed opportunities here. I see that it's just little changes, little habits that can make a big difference with this one. So interacting often, especially with young learners while using technology. So this allows us not only to monitor their usage and fidelity, but gives us a better understanding of how, again, the digital is working for us. So there's many ways to do this depending on your setup. So of course, we know that one-on-one interaction, with feedback and praise, like that can't be replaced by any program. And even if you only have the capacity to reach one student per week, and it takes the whole year to reach all students, it's worth it. Because the key here is you get this opportunity to model, digital practices, best practices for your students. And then you get a chance to recognize when and where they might be encountering questions or challenges or obstacles. And it just allows you to adapt accordingly. Another way is through small group or through whole class instruction. So this is where your students are, they can come and take turns and interact, and they're able to share during learning with each other. So whether it's a projector or a interactive whiteboard, this example, this is Scholastic Bookflix, when the teacher is, using the whiteboard to be able to bring the kids into the learning all together and to take turns. Circle time, if you have those younger kids, that's another great way to invite technology into what is already a pretty established classroom routine. So instead of using, the big books every time your class reads together, just rotate in once in a while an ebook or an interactive whiteboard, or just use an iPad to read aloud with the group. And just as you would with a print book, but just to mix it in every once in a while is a great way to kind of interact with those students with technology. And then perhaps you have the option to take your students to a lab, or you have enough devices in your classroom for all your kids to be using technology at once. The benefit to this model is that you're able to dedicate your time to supporting students using digital. So you're able to circulate the classroom and observe students. You're not working with other kids. You're able to just kind of check in and pop in and out. Are they using it appropriately? Are they learning? Are you able to have real-time reports that you could be going around and looking at their data and supporting that student in real time? So I've seen this work really well too. But of course, I'm always going to go back to small group rotational centers. This is my favorite. I think this is the best for tech. Just the short amount of time, the rotations, the fact that you can get the data that you need to inform your instruction at the small group table, that really maximizes the efficiency of technology because you're able to be really flexible with those small groups based on the data you're generating. To make grouping even easier, so at Scholastic, we actually centralize and pull all of the learning data across all of our digital solutions, and we roll it up into a teacher dashboard. So this is where teachers can instantly create their own groups or automatically generate small groups based on all of that cross-product skill data. And again, like I said, they're flexible. You can do it weekly, you could do it monthly, whatever works for your classroom, but we recommend frequent, flexible small groups. So let's just stop in for a little quick check-in. How are you currently implementing tech in the classroom? And, are you interested in trying out another way?
I'm seeing someone said digital ebook reading, the Epic Reading app, ReadWorks. Okay, so we use the smartboard for reading and games, interactive apps, Sora, small groups with iPads, Kahoot, Pear Deck, IXL, Newsela, smartboard, Google Classroom, Canva, Story World. I'm seeing a few more small group here.
Love it.
Yep.
All right, so we'll keep moving along. So the 7th tip, we're getting to the end here, is to communicate frequently with families about tech in the classroom. So we know that communication between all the adults who are monitoring and invested in the student learning in school and out of school is essential. When a teacher opens up the discussion with caregivers, a partnership just will evolve to help young readers engage with digital in a positive light. Sharing quality programs, especially websites or apps, that's encouraging for parents. They're always looking for ways to help their students at home, especially if it's recommended. That referral, your teacher referral, is so powerful. So that's a really great opportunity to share and be a source for information for kids at home. And then obviously just using it at home. That's a great way to build that culture of family engagement, because we know that when families understand and are able to take action at home and they're going to reinforce what the kids are learning in the classroom, that has a huge impact on learning. So again, just building those bridges between extending that family home and school connection. When we we're building out first, we did really want to make sure that students could access it at home. A lot of, especially in the pre-K kindergarten classrooms, they didn't have a lot of time. So it was just an option, and parents were hungry for referrals to what they could do because their kids would be using the iPads on the weekend or in the evening. So this is a great way to make sure that, again, you're getting the data when they're using it at home. You're able to kind of monitor usage and progress. And so we send home a personalized letter for families to just tell them, what Scholastic First is, how it's being used in the classroom. And it's just a great way to be able to introduce the tech, especially in the beginning of the year. We have family presentations that you can show with video, and that's across our digital solutions that we know is really important, is getting that family buy-in as early as possible. And then, of course, you can share students' progress reports. So this is just that high quality touch point to be able to connect with families. You want to make sure that any digital programs you're using have those reports that are easily accessible, and you can just pull them up during conferences, and you just know that it's going to be able to give you an opportunity for everyone to reflect together what's going on. And the more family friendly the language, the better. So definitely keep an eye out for if your digital programs have those resources, because they should. If you want them to go home, you want to make sure that families understand how to use them, how to log in, same as what we covered with the students before. Our 8th tip is that whenever possible, connect digital text with other forms of media. So this could be print or audio or visual. So we know that when you introduce children to different forms and you make those explicit connections, that equips students for this deeper, richer interaction with the concepts and the ideas. So, for example, when we looked at our classic animated stories. So we have here Where the Wild Things Are, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, and Goodnight Moon. These are like classics that everyone knows and loves. These are also found in our animated video library in BookFlix with celebrity voiceovers and really engaging read alouds. So you might already have these print versions in your classroom or in your school library, and being able to connect the videos so that students can watch with BookFlix. That's when you can really demonstrate to your class how concepts, all of these ideas, they can transcend any one medium. So it's all a learning opportunity. Vice versa, if you have a paper book and you read that offline in Literacy Pro, for example, you could search that book, bring up a Think More quiz, and answer some comprehension quizzes. So again, it's like the reverse. So we're doing an offline activity and bringing it online to complete the circle. And again, why this is so great is that you're able to manage and understand what students are doing offline, but still collect their comprehension data and follow along. Okay, they read this book, they like this book, they're interested. This is what they're into right now. So it just gives you a breadth of data about that student that can be really valuable for their independent reading. And then tip number 9, so we want to regularly monitor data to inform instruction at the class and student level. So many of you, you're probably doing data chats and reviews, but how regular are they? Do you feel like you're getting the most actionable information that's applicable? So are you able to apply what you know and learn and read in those reports into your day-to-day instruction? So your digital solutions should go as high as you need, high level, or as granular as you need them. So for example, in Scholastic First, we of course have like class progress reports, but at any point, a teacher can dig deeper into specific students' data. So even down to like these examples, like the exact responses at the phoneme level, so that they can receive that support that they need. If you're using a phonemic awareness, like if you're using like a Haggerty or something like that, you can apply that data from First and say, okay, I know they're struggling with these sounds. We already covered that, but I think we need to focus more. And if you have the grouping tool, you can actually pull that into your small groups. So we really work to make sure that the data that is provided is what you want. And we do that through testing and talking to many, many teachers and many, many customers about what is working for them and what they need. And what we've heard is the granular data is really important at that student level. Because at the end of the day, data only works if we use it to inform instruction. And that's what it's intended for. Okay, and so we've made it to number 10. So last but not least, we want to match technology with student needs and adapt accordingly. So this kind of has like some nuance in it. It means a couple things. So when you're choosing a program and you're thinking about, where your students are in the literacy continuum, that's one thing. You're going to want to make sure that this is what your students need right now. But at the same time, the technology should also be smart enough to adapt to their needs along the way. So you want to make sure that kids aren't getting frustrated if a program is too challenging or not challenging enough. That's a big issue for their specific needs. So it's that whole concept of one size doesn't fit all. And your technology should be doing that heavy lifting for you. It should be adapting to the student's needs. And at the very basic level, what we would want to see is, the ability, these are just like very basic one-on-one stuff, but you want to make sure this checklist is hit. So can you stop and pause for questions? So, you don't want the program to like leave the student behind if they have to stop to ask a question. Can you turn off or on a read aloud function? So that audio support, the use of translated text, when and where available and when appropriate should be always an option. The ability to revisit, replay, reread the text as needed. So this means that, you don't want a program that's pushing a child forward until they're ready, and that they've hit the milestone that they need to go forward. Because again, you don't want them getting really frustrated that it's too hard or too easy. And then what we talked about before with the highlighted text. So that's really key. So those are just kind of the basics. But if you were to look at some specific examples, we have in Scholastic First, we have 3 levels. So the one that I just want to talk about briefly is the immediate scaffolding one. So here you're literally, if you're hearing a series of phonemes, so you're listening for that sound, and you are supposed to, well, we can just do it together. You can raise your hand when you hear the sound. So we'll go shh, ah, ooh, ah, e, So that feels pretty easy, right? But it's actually a pretty critical early reading skill. And it's important that a student can not only hear and identify a sound, but they can do it quickly. So we want to build that automaticity within that auditory proficiency skill. So in the digital program, when they're going through this game-based activity, they have 1 second, but the activity will either provide a visual cue if needed, if that student can't make it within that 1 second, or a flashing light, or perhaps they need more audio support, or, we could even extend the pacing. So maybe they need 1.5 seconds, or maybe they need 2 seconds, but the technology should be doing this. It should be adapting to the student's needs. So that's what I mean about really understanding at the top of the presentation when I said about really understanding what personalization means. And again, another example, in Literacy Pro, a teacher can personalize the settings. That's also another option. Maybe it's not happening automatically by the student, but the teacher can do it. So in Literacy Pro, those books that the student is selecting, maybe she's going to make sure that in her kindergarten class, there's modified grade bands for students. So maybe she knows that individual students need, they can read at this level versus this level, and she can modify accordingly. So that's another piece of personalization. It all depends on the tool, but you just want to make sure you really understand what those levers are that you have control of versus what is going to happen automatically. So that brings us to the end. I know that was a lot. These are the 10 easy tech tips to build foundations in reading, sounds, and text. I really hope that you are able to take something valuable from this list away and you're able to apply it in your own day-to-day instruction. And I like to just end with this note that at the end of the day, we know that technology is far from the most important component in the classroom, and strong teachers, strong pedagogy, partnered strategically with technology, that's what's going to have a huge impact and make your life easier and the outcomes richer. So that's what we were really, what we're trying to do at Scholastic Education Solutions with all of our digital programs is to support you. So if you have any questions, you want to learn more, our website is scholastic.com/edtech, and you can filter by implementation model or subject area, and it'll give you a lot of the options we talked about today and even more. Or if you want to just reach out directly, we have your partner, Omienka Barton, and she is awesome and happy to help. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Amanda Darcy to tell you about our latest announcement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joelle. If you stop sharing your screen, then I'm going to share my screen. Perfect. Thank you all so much for staying. And Joelle, I don't know if you were able to see, but the chat was so wonderful and so active, and so many people were just, discussing all the great topics that you went over. So thank you all so much for all of that discussion. Now, there's a reason why, all the programs that Joelle mentioned are just as loved by both teachers and students, as they are effective in improving those learning outcomes across the country. It's because at Scholastic, we don't create anything in a vacuum. We not only take in educator feedback, but we involve educators at every single stage of that process. We know it's important to build solutions that solve real problems in our classrooms, and we know to invite productive collaboration in a way that benefits all parties for the best results, ultimately for our kids. So I'm very excited to announce that we have formalized and perfected this product development process with the brand new Scholastic Innovation Lab. The Innovation Lab is our initiative to involve passionate practitioners like yourselves in developing educational solutions in a meaningful way, because your voice matters a lot. It's really the experiences, that all of you in our schools and our classrooms have that drive our understanding of what works and what's needed, and that's where we need to start. So it's an iterative process of discovering those problems, ideating potential solutions, creating the solutions, and then testing, to see what can be done better. And we want to involve you in that cycle. We also know, obviously, you already have a very full plate, overfull, in fact. That's why the lab offers multiple levels of involvement that are completely voluntary. So you can do whatever your schedule allows while taking part in reimagining learning to be more efficient and engaging. And lastly, of course, there are benefits for you. So in addition to impacting, the future of educational technology and publishing for millions of students and educators with Scholastic, you will experience co-design and add a new skill set to your toolbox. You'll be offered professional learning opportunities. You'll get to network with educators and leaders across the country, and you'll receive a certification and a lot of cool swag. I, for one, love my Scholastic Innovation Lab t-shirt, which I'm rocking right now, and you get one as well. So if any of this appeals to you, please scan this QR code now with your phone, or click the link that Ariel will put into the chat. So you can scan this QR code now right with your phone by opening your camera app, or you can click on the link that Ariel will put into the chat. Will also be available in our virtual booth if you need the link again or have any questions. And while you do that, I just want to add, if you've done any reflecting before in PDs, you've definitely done your fair share of brainstorming already about solutions, but you might have noticed that sometimes that's just where it ends, right? At the Innovation Lab at Scholastic, what you share with us is never the end. It is the beginning to a product development journey, because we have the resources to make your ideas and thoughts into actual solutions, actual sensible, tangible solutions that'll not only benefit you and your students, but also students across the country as well. Trust me, this is the club to be a part of, and we're looking for as many diverse voices as possible, different grade levels and subject areas. So we really hope to see you join. And yeah, so I know we're a little bit over time. So here's our final thank you of this session today. We do have another session coming up from Scholastic Education Solutions, so please visit our virtual booth. And if we missed any of your questions in the chat or in the Q&A, again, visit our virtual booth. Ariel, Joelle, and I will be there to answer and address anything you need.